the electricity tariff hikes, which will force millions to make an impossible choice between food and between electricity.
Why can't citizens afford electricity? Because by 2001, ESKOM went from a public utility to operating as a private company. This resulted in recovery models, which means that consumers now cover the cost of electricity generation and supply.
Now, ESKOM's request for a 4% increase, which has been approved by NERSA, totaling some 8 billion, may be concerning on its own. However, a further proposal for 36% in 2025 is nothing short of an attack on the very livelihoods of millions of South African citizens.
By 2007, the government realized that not building new power generation was a grave mistake. At the heart of everything, misgovernance in municipalities, misappropriating funds, means that the government fails to provide affordable electricity and free basic electricity to the poorest people.
The proposed 36% increase, if it is approved, will push South Africans into an even deeper crisis. The rising electricity costs will have a ripple effect across our economy. Businesses, particularly the small and medium businesses, will face skyrocketing operational costs, forcing many of them to close their doors. Unemployment will rise from the already staggering 32.9%, and our local economies will suffer, forcing many people into a life.
Please take your seats. Honourable Bapti.
Honourable Chair, honourable members, today we address a critical issue of national importance, and that is the electricity tariff hikes, which will force millions to make an impossible choice between food and between electricity. And as representatives of the people, we cannot ignore the devastating impact that these electricity tariff hikes will have on South African households and on South African businesses. They are already struggling under the weight of economic pressure and a cost of living crisis. Now, ESKOM's request for a 4% increase, which has been approved by NERSA, totaling some 8 billion, may be concerning on its own. However, a further proposal for 36% in 2025 is nothing short of an attack on the very livelihoods of millions of South African citizens. This debate is not just about balancing ESKOM's books. It's about ensuring that electricity remains accessible and affordable for all in this country. Now, municipalities play a crucial role in electricity distribution. They purchase bulk electricity from ESKOM, they distribute it to their residents and to their businesses. They rely on that revenue to generate funds for essential services. In well-functioning municipalities, this model works well. We see in the city of Cape Town and municipalities like Midvaal. But unfortunately, it's not the case across the whole of South Africa. Many municipalities are failing to manage their finances responsibly. It leads to escalating debt, and in 2023, municipalities owed ESKOM 82 billion rand. Now, this is unsustainable, and it directly contributes to the increasing cost of electricity. Because when municipalities fail or default on payment to ESKOM, the utility is left with a shortfall that must be recovered elsewhere. Inevitably, it means that ESKOM seeks further tariff hikes, placing the burden on all consumers. And this vicious cycle of mismanagement and rising costs will continue unless we confront the inefficiencies that are crippling our local governments. The proposed 36% increase, if it is approved, will push South Africans into an even deeper crisis. Energy poverty is already a reality for millions, and this increase will force even more households to make that choice between buying electricity and meeting basic needs like food and housing. The DA local government mayors have made it clear in their submissions to NERSA that this proposal is not only unacceptable, it is morally indefensible. Moreover, the rising electricity costs will have a ripple effect across our economy. Businesses, particularly the small and medium businesses, will face skyrocketing operational costs, forcing many of them to close their doors. Unemployment will rise from the already staggering 32.9%, and our local economies will suffer, forcing many people into a life of poverty. So municipal inefficiencies compound this crisis. Many municipalities have failed to maintain accurate financial records. They've neglected their basic maintenance of infrastructure. They're unable to collect revenue for the services that they have provided. And this failure puts increasing pressure on those municipalities to meet the obligations to ESKOM and ultimately forces ESKOM to raise its tariff, leading to higher costs all round. For example, municipalities must provide NERSA with a cost of supply report to justify their tariffs. Now in 2023, 101 of the 177 municipalities could not do so. And this led to inaccurate tariff determinations that hurt consumers. But it's essential to highlight that a recent High Court ruling found that NERSA's considerations of municipal electricity tariff increases without the required cost studies was invalid. And the judgment confirms what many have long suspected. NERSA has failed in its regulatory duty to protect consumers from unjustified tariff hikes and to act as an impartial referee in making tariff determinations. Without proper cost studies, municipalities have been allowed to charge random rates, further distorting electricity prices and contributing to the unaffordable increases that we are now facing. This regulatory failure must be urgently addressed. It adds to the inefficiencies and the mismanagement at municipal level, and it adds yet another layer of burden to South Africans. We must demand accountability from both NERSA and from those municipalities to ensure that the process of determining tariffs is transparent, is fair, and based on actual costs. The mismanagement must stop. We cannot continue to tolerate a situation where South Africans are forced to pay more because their local governments are failing to carry out the duties and do the work that is required of them. And it brings us to a fundamental issue, and that is the need for a more competitive energy market. The DA has long advocated for opening up South Africa's energy sector to independent power producers. This will create competition, drive down costs, and hence improve service delivery. Municipalities must be encouraged to incentivize and purchase energy directly from these producers, allowing for a more diversified and resilient energy system. The current monopoly that ESKOM has over generation and distribution is no longer tenable. A competitive market will force efficiency, create alternatives for consumers, and alleviate the burden on municipalities and relieve them from what they are currently locked into, and that is a system that is failing them and their residents. Honourable members, we cannot in good conscience accept ESKOM's proposed 36% tariff increase. The DA stands firmly against this unjustifiable hike. We will continue to fight it tooth and
Honourable
nail.
Member, your time has expired.
Mayors across the country, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
I now invite the Honourable Kojane.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Minister, ESKOM is there to provide electricity to the public, but they also need to be profitable by selling electricity to the public who currently cannot afford it. Why can't citizens afford electricity? Because by 2001, ESKOM went from a public utility to operating as a private company. This resulted in recovery models, which means that consumers now cover the cost of electricity generation and supply. By 2007, the government realized that not building new power generation was a grave mistake. At the heart of everything, misgovernance in municipalities, misappropriating funds, means that the government fails to provide affordable electricity and free basic electricity to the poorest people. With the decreased revenue and the increased debt, ESKOM now continuously applies for tariff hikes and recoveries. The regulatory clearing account, as a recovery mechanism, is there to prevent further deterioration of ESKOM. They will allow for an adjustment between forecasted revenues and actual expenses, so that ESKOM can continue to operate and invest in infrastructure. But at the same time, ESKOM also faces rising costs on multiple fronts, such as the maintenance of aging infrastructure and the cost of emergency power generation. And this is as a result of not implementing the policies that are already in place to sustain ESKOM, regular maintenance at plants, political interference, as well as corruption. During 2021 and 2022, we faced unprecedented load shedding, which negatively affected the economy, businesses, and citizens. If you couple that with high unemployment, high cost of living, pensioners who are unable to afford anything these days, can we really ask people to pay more? Many South Africans also face a situation where purchasing 100 Rand worth of electricity only yields 36 units due to excessive tariffs. Illegal connections also remain widespread despite a recovery of 8.1 billion Rand. But there is no clear plan to address these issues. Minister, from 2007 to 2022, the electricity tariffs have increased by an astounding 653%, while inflation during the same period was only at 129%. The quadrupling of electricity costs in real terms is unsustainable, and citizens are bearing the brunt of ESKOM's financial mismanagement. The department should also do more to inform South Africans, especially the poorest communities, on how they can reduce electricity consumption and lower costs. We need large-scale campaigns to teach the public about energy-efficient practices. Consumers must be made aware that they must choose appliances with an A rating model label that uses less electricity but performs the same task. The public must also know that many appliances continue to use electricity even when they are turned off but still plugged in. And this standby power can account for up to 10% of the home's electricity usage. Minister, we can stand here and highlight all the negative impacts of ESKOM's mismanagement, but we need a serious overhaul. There must be stronger accountability for ESKOM's failures, and there cannot be political interference. The government has to protect the citizens from soaring electricity costs. Our strategy cannot be simply to rely on continuous bailouts. Minister, in mitigating load shedding, you've kept the lights on since the elections, with the exception of communities that still face load reduction. But the electricity cost is still too high. As an engineer, your focus is always on solutions. You know where the problem lies, and you know how to fix it once and for all. If we want the public to trust us, then we must show them that we root out
Honourable
that
Member, your
corruption
time has expired.
and turn ESKOM into a world-class economy. Thank you.
I now